So, hello everyone. Before I start, I'd like to start with the same exercise as Samit did before. How many of you have ever worked or used PhantomJS? 1, 2, 3, 4. 6 of you, but not many people. And who has heard that now PhantomJS can be a WebDriver? So this talk is going to be about how to get started to use PhantomJS as a WebDriver, so using GhostDriver. And also a little bit of what has been my experience so far working on the project. My name is Ivan De Marino. I am a computer scientist. I currently work for Amazon. I do different things, and you can find me online in those places. But mostly I am pretty much heavily involved in PhantomJS and in GhostDriver, as it is the implementation of WebDriver for PhantomJS. So, first of all, what is GhostDriver? GhostDriver is, at the moment, there is a dichotomy. There are actually two things that compose this project. One is the implementation of WebDriver for PhantomJS, and that's what we call GhostDriver. There is a little bit of complication because there is another name that is PhantomJS driver, but that is just the WebDriver binding. It's the set of classes that you use in your test, in your scripts to define your tests. So when you do new Firefox driver, there is now a new PhantomJS driver. The current version is version 1.02. It's the stable version, and it's the one that we embed in PhantomJS currently. Soon there's going to be a version 1.3. It's 1.03 that's currently in development, and that is going to be the next stable version of PhantomJS as well. So you said not many of you know what is PhantomJS because only 6 of you have used it before. PhantomJS is an implementation of a WebDriver. It's built on Qt, and it's heavily based on WebKit. It embeds a WebKit driver, a WebKit core engine, and is mostly written in C++, but you run it using JavaScript. It's headless, and is designed for either developers or testers that want to script out the behavior of a browser. The reason for developing GhostDriver was that the highest number of issue requests we got with PhantomJS was the fact that everyone was asking to be able to plug PhantomJS inside Selenium, and so we had to implement a WebDriver. The architecture of how GhostDriver works is more or less this one. You have on the left your script that uses the Selenium project in whatever language binding you prefer to use. You can use .NET, you can use Ruby, you can use Java. And those components, the Selenium, particularly the what is called the remote WebDriver, implements an HTTP REST protocol, so the client side of it. So this side you have your Selenium test with the Selenium and the remote WebDriver in it, and it speaks with the actual implementation of the driver to an HTTP REST-based protocol that we call the WireProtocol. On the other side, you have PhantomJS that is running. I don't know if it's actually readable. There are a couple of links there that would be useful if you want to check it out. And GhostDriver is a script written in JavaScript that runs on top of PhantomJS. Again, because it creates a lot of confusion, I repeat again. GhostDriver is a script running. It's a script running inside PhantomJS, but it's also contained in PhantomJS at the same time. The reason for doing this is, so we have the stable version always in PhantomJS available, and then we have the development version, that is what I work on daily, that you can execute as a normal script in PhantomJS. So one thing that I found very puzzling when I started to work on this project was the fact that there was no specific description of what happens when you do new driver in your test, and then you do driver.get and a URL. There's a lot of stuff going on underneath, and you just see 2 lines of code. So I decided I put together a simple slide that contains the sequence diagram of what's going on. So when you, in your test, write new in this case, PhantomJS driver there. What you do, you are creating an object. That object creates, in turn, another object is called the PhantomJS driver service. And this is pretty common within the implementation of the different drivers, so Chrome driver and Firefox driver. What this thing do at this point, it starts another process, a separate process, in this case PhantomJS. And once it's launched, PhantomJS executes GhostDriver, that is a script running inside here. After this stage, what happens is that this service, this is running inside your test. This is inside the same process in which you're running your test, starts polling an endpoint that is /status on the port where this is supposed to be running until it responds back with the HTTP 200 OK. From this point on, your test knows that there is a browser waiting for commands to be executed, only from this point onwards. After this, your driver, before giving you back control, it will create a new session. So it will send an HTTP post to the session command. This is part, this definition, HTTP get status, HTTP post session, this is all part of the WireProtocol. It will require for capabilities, so it will, based on the desired capabilities that you want, there will be a JSON object being sent to the driver on the other side, and the driver will, in this case, it will create a page inside PhantomJS. So in this case, you can see the GhostDriver sends a command to require webpage.create to the PhantomJS process. At that point, when the page is being created, it responds back with 200 OK. Only at this point, you are going to the next line of your test. So you just see one single line of your test, but behind it, there is a lot of stuff going on. And I simplified a lot here. After that, imagine in your test, usually the first thing you do, you want to load the page. You do a get URL, get URL. That will be translated internally to a send command get. That, unfortunately, the naming is not, it doesn't match, because what they are actually going to do is an HTTP post with the session, the idea of the session that is just being created here, the URL that you want to open. Then your driver internally waits for the page to load, and that's discussable how exactly, because every driver seems to be doing something slightly different, and then it returns back control back to you. This is to say, personally, I have not been on the project as long as, for example, Daniel or Summit. They seem to have much more experience than I have. But it's been very interesting to learn this as a matter of something to respect a lot of those guys, because it's really, really complicated to just do a simple launch a browser and then open a URL. There is a lot going on underneath. So as testers, I think we are very lucky that there is someone that spent time just working out of this stuff. So that said, I want to spend a little bit of time explaining how to set up your test so that you can use PhantomJS. So the first thing you do, of course, is download PhantomJS. The simple way is you go to a URL like this. Based on, of course, the current version and the OS that you want, you download a PhantomJS build, unzip it, and you are ready to go. The other option, if you have a lot of time, you can download the source code itself and run this script. This script is, I don't know if you can read it here, I will go make some coffee. This is going to take an hour on a fast machine. In a slow machine, it might take 5 hours, because what we are building here is the entire WebKit, all of it, because we are building a browser from source code. After that, optionally, you might want to set up add the path to the build of PhantomJS you just did to your path file, so that it's available from the command line. Yes. An optional step of this is you want GhostDriver, that is, again, the driver implementation for PhantomJS, lives inside PhantomJS, but in there you will have always the stable version. If you, by any chance, decide to start contribute to the project, and please, if you want, I am looking for contributors, then you'll have to download the actual source code of GhostDriver itself as well. This is JavaScript, pure JavaScript. After that, you need to add the bindings to your project. You want to add the classes that are going to make it easy for you to launch the process. I put a little bit of examples. In Java, as usual, is a little bit more verbose. There are two possibilities. Here you have the Maven style inclusion, and you here just importing the package, the jar file that will contain the drivers, the binding. This is Grado, that I found it much more pleasing. It's just one line. For other projects, like for other languages, language bindings like Python, Ruby, and .NET is one line, literally. You just install Selenium, and everything is contained inside Selenium. Capability. This is important because you need to tell to the driver, to the binding, where the actual executable of PhantomJS is. You have downloaded it, you know what it is, but your test doesn't know it yet. To do it, you pass just a simple set of capabilities. You can provide. I put a couple of static finals in the class PhantomJS driver service just to make it easy to remember. It's a bit long of a long name, but ultimately what you do, you just setting this is the capability to describe what the executable is, and you put the path to this here. If you decide to contribute to the GhostDriver project, so you want to actually fix a bug, there are many. If you want to fix a bug in GhostDriver, if you want to implement new commands in the driver, then what you can do also optionally set this other capability to define where GhostDriver is. And at that point, you just do new PhantomJS driver. From this point on, it's a normal driver. So whatever test you have, it will work straight away. In theory, because drivers internally do have differences, even though we try to make every one of them behave exactly the same. I don't have an example for the other languages because the documentation of those, it's out there, and I don't maintain them, and I didn't have time to put slides for all of them. Unfortunately, this will make more sense if probably the few people that know PhantomJS will know what I'm talking about here. One of the requests that I got when I was starting to develop the project is that people wanted to set up, wanted to pass specific settings to the page object that PhantomJS internally is creating. And there was no way to do it because the WireProtocol was sort of defining a barrier. And because it was not supported directly, it was not possible to define these specific behaviors. I added a couple of special capabilities that are just PhantomJS specific. What you can do is, whatever you set here instead of X, and you have all these possible values at the moment, you can define the value that you want to associate with it. And this will be applied to every page object or every session that you create within your test. There are examples. An example of this can be Amazon as a website needs to avoid screen scraping. So PhantomJS is very good for doing screen scraping. You can scrape a lot of information out of it. So what we do, we filter out based on user agent. In other words, if we see the PhantomJS user agent coming to Amazon, we stop it because simply we don't want to waste CPU time trying to serve this. But there is a trick. You can set the user. I'm sure I will lose my job for this, but you can set up. You can override the user agent, and at that point we don't know what you are. You can pretend to be an iOS device. You can pretend to be other stuff, and in this way you can also override the other properties. This is part of the PhantomJS. This will be more familiar to PhantomJS developers, so I invite you to look at the PhantomJS documentation to understand what they do. But they are pretty descriptive. Another request that I got during development, this one is not released yet, it's part of the development version, so it's going to be in 1.03, is the fact that sometimes when you write your test, you don't really care about certificates and security. What you're trying to do is something else. I know that there was before me just a talk about security. I have no idea what he said. I'm sure it was really interesting, but unfortunately I don't understand Russian, so here I have an example of how you can tell PhantomJS to ignore any security settings, any certificate failure or anything like that, because your purpose is actually test the page. And what you can do now is to set a new, another capability, this one with an array of strings. All the strings will be passed on the command line of the process where it's launched. An optional step can be to set up grid, or better. If you have a Selenium grid running and you want to register your PhantomJS process to it so that you can ask to your grid, give me a PhantomJS instance and run my test in PhantomJS, what you do, I added a couple of command line parameters to PhantomJS. So what you provide here is It assumes, if you don't provide anything, that you are running on localhost, the port, and then here with this parameter here, WebDriver Selenium Grid Hub. It's a bit long name, but anyway, you put here the URL to your hub. At that point, PhantomJS has registered itself against your hub, your Selenium hub, and after that, you will run your test in PhantomJS as well. Yes, this is an example of the kind of code you have to write to use it to request to your grid for the PhantomJS instance. That's important. Currently, I don't have all the WebDriver commands implemented. The majority of them is there, but there are a few important ones that I didn't manage to finish yet. In the current version, these ones are not provided, so you don't have the screen device orientation API, even though not every driver supports it. PhantomJS can, it's just a matter of building them. I don't have support for manipulating alert, confirm, and prompt. In PhantomJS, in general, you can do that, but WebDriver has a very different logic on how alerts are handled. So I need to modify PhantomJS itself to make this work, and for now, I didn't have time to work on this. Other stuff that is not implemented is the touch API, the geolocation API, manipulation of the local storage, and the logs. I put together a spreadsheet and even wrote this URL, and check out what is implemented and what other commands will be implemented in which version. By the way, I forgot to mention, I will put online those slides afterwards. So, now, I discussed about how you set it up. The second part of this presentation for me was important to talk about a little bit, or how to make a WebDriver, or what it sort of implied working on a WebDriver. The first thing you need to know about building a WebDriver is it's not easy. I have to say, I have a massive amount of respect for the people that work on this, that started this project. Simon Stewart, he knows that I love him. If you're watching this, I love you. But it's complicated because you are trying to wrap a software that is not being designed from scratch to be automated and to try to automate it. This has been designed to deal with normal users, and you're trying to make a software out of it. At the moment, but I'm dedicating most of my time at code hardening. I would like to add a new feature, particularly the commands we were showing before, but I have been spending like 2-3 months now only dealing with issues, only dealing with either features that were not implemented correctly or behaviors that I misinterpreted the documentation when I implemented it. But what is really striking me as a developer of this project is this data here. I have the set of closed issues that I have a collection of invalid issues that is exactly the same number of bugs that I solved. So half of this portion of the pie here, half of it is my fault, half of it is people that don't read the documentation or just don't report it correctly to me, or they make it really hard to help them. In the beginning of the project, I don't know if you can see it clearly here, this was me every time there was a new issue. I was feeling guilty, I was feeling like I let down the few people that were interested in this project, or I was just not doing a good job. Now it's me, this is me. I mostly don't give a crap for a simple reason, because it's important to deal with the issue, it's important to make whoever is using your software happy, but I have also learned that it's okay to be a little bit rude, to tell the person, listen, I want to help you, but you need to come back to me with something that I can deal with. Coming to me and just say, oh, your software is broken, that's it. What am I going to do? There is nothing I can do. Apart, as I said, I was feeling guilty, now I don't give a crap. I would just say, okay, this guy is an idiot, I'll go on. Particularly, this was the way issues were raised most of the time. People would come and say, oh, but this thing works with my Firefox, why is it not working with PhantomJS? Help me understand what you're trying to do. Help me make mistakes. I have made mistakes. I am still fixing bugs. There is currently I'm dealing with a very tricky situation. I need to correctly, better implement the wait time when you click on an element and you possibly are starting a page load. That seems to be a simple thing. You can just say, okay, I click on something, if the page starts loading, then you wait. It's really hard because in a website, with your JavaScript, with the page itself, it's really, it's possible to start the page loading in a lot of situations. It's not something that you can easily identify a scenario for. So, it takes a lot of time to deal with this stuff. Examples of very, that I collected 4 of them that are really, really upsetting. One of them was, my test works in Chrome and Firefox, but not in PhantomJS, please fix it. That's it, that was the report. I didn't have a test, I didn't have source code, I didn't have anything. Initially I was like, okay, can you please tell me more? Probably if you write it now, I just close the issue and not even answer to you, because...
You should write, I did
it. The core of this is the fact that I really want to be helpful. I do feel like I should try to help as much as possible, because ultimately, even though this is a project that I started because it was fun and I was interested in solving it, now there are a few people that want to make it work correctly. So I need to try to help, but you need to also help me help you. I think a lot of people use this sentence now. Yes, this one was the selfish guy. We need feature X for my work, so in his actual daily job. When do you plan to implement it? To which I started answering now, when you implement it. You implement it, you send it to me, and we can merge the code together. Because if you're, seriously, if you're using it for your job, and you have enough skills to try to solve the problem, this is JavaScript. Again, a lot of people say it should be easier to fix it because it's purely JavaScript, so if I know a little bit of JavaScript, I can help you. Yes, if you do and you help me, I will love you and I'll send you beer, I don't know, or chocolate. What was this one? I got this test and it fails with error not implemented. Why? I checked with Firefox and Chrome. Now, what's not clear about not implemented? That's what I asked. There are commands that are not implemented yet. So why the hell are you coming back to me and saying, oh, this is not implemented? I know that it's not implemented, I'm telling you. So, people are incredible for that. Yes, now this is instead the one that wants to offend while at the same time wants to be helpful. There was a guy that came to the project and he said, you are a little bit of background. I have written quite some tests for the commands that I am implementing. But unfortunately, in the beginning, because my priority was, let's have some tests that I can deal with, but I didn't spend much time setting up a proper server to host my tests and test against it. I know that Daniel now hates me for this, but I started in this way. I was just opening Google and checking stuff on Google. Of course, every time Google was changing the page, I was having a failure. But it worked to get things running. This guy came, said, you're running an open source project and you're not doing testing, right? This is wrong. My answer was, okay, you're right. Can you please provide for me a pull request with the code? He did. I appreciate it, but he left even saying, here is the code, but I still think you should have done it. From my point of view, this is not very good in terms of collaboration, because ultimately we forget that behind the keyboard, behind this thing, behind the screen, there is another human being. So while it's easy to write something like your shit on the keyboard, it's much more hard to do it face to face. So imagine at the other side, there is a person in front of you, and they can say the same thing. I'm sure no one will do. So a couple of examples of a good way to raise a issue. This guy is Giacomo, I think, yes? I don't know if you can read the name, probably not on this screen. Anyway, he found an issue with switching between frames. So what he investigated, he pointed me, the first one he says, when running test spec, that code can be found here, I get the following error message. Most probably related to PhantomJS issue, blah, 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 blah. So what this guy did, he provided me with the test so that I can reproduce the issue. He gave me the error message. In addition to that, he also looked inside the repository of PhantomJS and worked out that there was an issue in PhantomJS itself that was causing GhostDriver to fail. It's a great example of how to report an issue, because before just jumping at me, he spent a little bit of his time, or his free time, in the same way I'm doing it, to try to be as much as helpful as possible. This problem was fixed in like 2 hours, but just because he did all the investigation for me, and he helped me help him. This is another guy, Christoph Neurot. I don't really know this guy, I know Charm a little bit. But anyway, what he wanted the ability to ignore errors on when the certificate was not recognized. For example, sometimes inside your company you generate your HTTPS certificate, and the browser says this is not a valid certificate. Sorry. So, in case you get with PhantomJS, you don't have the possibility to click on accept this certificate anyway. So we have an option to do it from command line to accept every SSL error, to ignore every SSL error. What he wanted to do is the possibility to do that. He raised first the issue 149. He realized that we had a little bit of discussion. I told him, look, you want this feature. I suggest instead what you do, you implement a general feature in which you can pass parameters for the command line to the process itself. So a little bit more generic solution. He went back, he raised another issue, but this time with the pull request next to it. He provided the code, 2 minutes, merged everything, works perfectly, and it's going to be in the next version of the driver. So extremely helpful, and even actually fixed the problem. He didn't just complain about it. Now, I put together a simple flowchart on how to raise issues. But probably they should be attached on all every office now. So, try to be as fast as possible with this. You find your issue. First thing you do before raising anything, you go to your the issue tracker of the project and see if there is anything there mentioned that sounds similar to what you are having. If there is, you just add a +1, saying I have this problem too, and just make yourself a coffee. If instead it's not been reported before, then the first question to ask yourself, can you reproduce this issue? Can you produce an example, a piece of code that shows this issue to me? No? Then why? Go do something else, because I cannot help you if you don't show me something. It's difficult to always meet. Of course, if there is a meetup, there is a meeting, the person is next to you, opens the machine and you can check it out. But if we are on 2 different sides of the world, it's not going to be easy to sit together and solve this problem. So that's why I need an example of code to reproduce your issue. So let's imagine that you have worked out the way to reproduce the issue. Before you file the issue request, and instead of just raising the issue, can you go into the source code? It's open source, so you can look at the problem and solve it. If you can, instead of raising an issue, just open a pull request, so that I can actually look at your code and say, this looks great, you solved the problem, merge. That's it. If you can't solve the issue, ask yourself again, can you really not solve the issue? There is nothing you can do, like spending an hour of your evening time, like I do. And if you really can't, then in that case, report your issue and remember to report to have an example of source code with it. It's really important, it makes stuff fixed. Personally, I will fix you any issue in a matter of 1 to 2 days if I have a way to reproduce it. Now, that said, being very patronizing, I'm sorry about that, but it's a recurring problem. I would like to say a few words about sort of what I learned doing open source, so far at least. The first thing, and probably the most important thing, is that open source is a doer's culture. It's a culture of people that do. So before you jump and say, I want to do this thing, you do this thing. Do it first. And you will find a lot of people helpful that want to really help you help them and help you improve yourself and the project in which you're working on. This is just a collection of some of the people I've worked so far with. At the bottom of the slides, you have a couple of links if you want to see more of them. I don't know if any of you knows this guy. That guy is important. Email WebDriver. This is the first implementation of WebDriver. Very cranky people sometimes, people that get really upset if you say something stupid, but ultimately always helpful. Now, I like to conclude with a simple list of things I learned doing this stuff. The first thing is that building a WebDriver is not just implementing the WireProtocol. The WireProtocol is, again, as I said in the beginning, is an HTTP, JSON, REST protocol. But there is a lot of stuff around a WebDriver for the very fact that you are automating a browser, a software that is not designed to be automated. Simon and Devant and people like Daniel, they are trying to convince other software manufacturers or browser manufacturers, and it's working because, for example, Devant works for Mozilla, so he's actively involved in it. They are trying to convince them to implement their own implementation, their own drivers, because it makes sense for who makes the browser to make it also testable. The second thing, this is very personal, maybe you don't agree with this, but I found it very useful for me. Every time there is a bug, every time someone raises a bug for you, don't fix it. The first thing you do, you write the test. In this case, if someone raises an issue for you, then the test will be the code that they provide with an example to reproduce it. That's why it's so important. They might write the bug fixer, the test for you, and then you just take it and put it inside your repository and you use that as a test. And then only after that point you fix the bug, not before. The reason being, I found that it's really useful to grow a very big and stable collection of tests that ensure over time that the quality of a product can only go up. Because as long as the test you have written is not brittle and not depending on specific corner cases, but it's solid enough to reproduce a scenario and see it working, it can only be useful over time. You grow a big collection of tests, and it's just good. I don't know what to add of that. Yeah, this one was the issue I had, a problem I had during the holidays. I released version 1.02, and then I went home for Christmas. I live in London, but my family is in Italy, so I went back there. I started to receive a flood of email with all sorts of issue, problems, people were finding all sorts of stuff because I just released the software, so they were starting to use it. Most of them got solved by themselves because people were not reading documentation, were not looking inside the source code, they were just complaining straight away. A lot of those problems were either solved by other people in the community jumping on the thread and saying, oh, by the way, you can do this, this, and that. Or people just got smarter, spent an hour extra, and solved the problem by themselves. They learned something. I have done nothing. It's completely free to me, and it actually is it's a learning experience for everyone at that point. Because the person that came to you and just reported an issue is actually learned that next time he will probably read a little bit more carefully the documentation or the README file to fix the issue by himself. I have a funny story about this. Because no one was reading the README file on the top of the source code of the project, I created a file called Do Not Read Me. In there was just a piece of text saying, if you are reading this, you are an idiot, you should be reading the README file. No one complained anymore about this, everyone was reading the README file. It worked so well because I guess it's a matter of the brain sees the README file, it just ignores it because it's familiar. When they saw something not familiar, they started to check it out. Yes. A lot of times, I don't know how to solve the problem. I just simply don't have the solution, I cannot work it out, either I'm late at night, I'm tired, or just, I don't know. What I found out works very well is that I go away, I literally ignore my computer, I do something else, I'm traveling with the bus, I'm cycling, all sorts of stuff. most of the time, your brain is working for you. You don't know, but unconsciously, you are solving the problem. And all of a sudden, you will have illumination. A lot of people say it happens under the shower. I think it can happen anywhere. But it really happens. That's my experience. You simply have this idea, oh, yes, I can try this. And most of the time, it works. But there's also another catch here. If you don't solve it, there might be someone else that in the meantime solves it. So you don't do anything. It literally solves by itself. Someone else comes, implements a solution. You learn how to solve the problem. They've contributed to open source. It's good for the CV. Everyone wins. Yeah, and this is now my standard answer to people that criticize the project. If anyone comes and says your code is shit, you should stop working on this, or it doesn't do what you should do, ask for a pull request. If they don't provide code back, just close the issue and ignore them. There are people that will be more trollish, they will come back with a defense. There are people that are less trollish, they will realize that they've been a little bit offensive. It happens sometimes that there is a language barrier as well. Myself, I am Italian, but my English is not really good. Sometimes people I work with say that I'm a bit too honest and open. I should probably control the way, how many times I say shit. You probably counted them now, but I certainly really laughing about it. But I think we are still human beings, so if you react, making understand the other person that maybe it was exaggerating, the person will understand. We are not stupid, we are all smart people, otherwise we won't be doing this job. That's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for introducing the software class, but the main thing is not the software, it's PhantomJS. And why should we use it? And when? And what advantages does it have? Why should we run our test not in Chrome or Firefox, but using this?
Okay, and now I sound very much like those two guys there. I don't think you should use only PhantomJS or GhostDriver. Never, because even though this is a WebKit, it's not a production WebKit. GhostDriver or PhantomJS, they apply very well to a specific scenario, in my point of view. While you're writing your code, it's fast to iterate. It doesn't require any X server. It doesn't pop up with a window in front of you and you might accidentally click stuff. You can run your test from your command line and result immediately and move on. It's helpful while you are developing because it makes iteration faster. I do believe that you, as developers, are better when we can iterate fast. So that's one. There is another reason. A lot of people like PhantomJS for the fact that they can easily put inside their automation, their CI. So not everyone is Google. Not everyone can run how many machines? Or browsers running all the time, running millions of tests every day. It's just unbelievable, mind-boggling. But normal people have one machine, two machines to do their CI. And most of the time you don't have even access to it. It may be easy to do. You don't have UI, or it's better to don't have any X server. PhantomJS works without an X server. It doesn't require an X server. It's not like Firefox, not like Chrome. It doesn't have to draw anything. But before you ask, it does take screenshots if you want, because we have in memory the image. If you want, you can ask PhantomJS to give you the picture.
How much is it faster than
Quantifying it is difficult. I have found that empirically, with few iterational tests. I did a presentation about this in April, and I was seeing the first result. It's much faster than Firefox. Like, there's no comparison. With Chrome, it's really difficult to see a difference. Over time, if you iterate like 1,000 times the same test, you will see that PhantomJS is slightly faster. But Chrome is really fast as well, so you're not gaining there. There is a catch though. We might, not at the moment, but we're thinking, at least I'm thinking, to port PhantomJS to Qt 5. Currently, PhantomJS is built on Qt 4.8.4. And it's using a version of WebKit and JavaScript code. This is the standard stuff you find in WebKit project. we want to use V8. If we move PhantomJS to V8, I'm pretty sure we will get a lot of speed just for free. Thank you. No question?
Thank you for your and the question regarding does it support using WireProtocol?
Yes, GhostDriver is specifically implementation of the JSON WireProtocol. Yes.
And the next question is, as usual, we have a phone to register WebDriver or something on read, but how we can unregister it? If it can unregister automatically with the phone or something.
I don't know, to be honest. I have implemented the support for grid, but I'm not sure what I don't know what it means to unregister it.
Unregister it?
Yeah.
Let's say we have, I found this issue with the Android WebDriver. When we have Android WebDriver, we should register it on grid to be able to run tests. But when Android device falls down, crash, reboot or something, we cannot tell grid that there is no such node on the grid anymore.
So I suppose there is some protocol that needs to be implemented.
Yeah. I just asked if it's implemented or not. Looks like no.
I can answer the question, I think. If I look at the operating system, we will. I can tell you through the way. If there is anything registered when. No, there is no. I think it only registers at the moment.
Okay. So
please file an issue, and I will implement the super from the register.
Yes, I guess. Thank you.
Thanks for your report. I have a question. Whether you received any issues with the support of some huge UI frameworks like Edge.js or Node.js or something similar. Just I'm thinking like if you run the test, this application which uses some pure JavaScript, that's normal case. But when it goes with something larger, how would it be handled? Maybe
well,
that's the question about.
I'm not sure I understand. Can you rephrase it a little bit? I don't know. I'm not sure I get what you mean.
As I understood, when you start the driver, there is no window. So, right?
Yes, there is no window.
Okay. So, but it created some request to an application. Application server returns some HTML with some JavaScript, and then it clicks the rendered. So
yes,
that could it actually renders the JavaScript.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Have you ever had some issues with rendering of JavaScript related to some UI frameworks, some huge UI frameworks like jQuery?
As far as I know, no, because we are running the JavaScript core from the WebKit project. This is not a sort of JavaScript, it's exactly like JavaScript. So we never had issues of this kind. Most of the time, people, what they do is, if it works in Chrome, and most likely it will work in PhantomJS as well. You might have PhantomJS, for example, it doesn't support WebGL, so you might not have those APIs. But in general, everything, it's the full JavaScript implementation, so being a WebKit core, you will get the same stuff.
Thank you.
I would like to ask the following question. So HTML unit driver is pretty popular for running in headless mode. So how would you compare HTML unit driver to this kind of stuff?
He can answer your question. HTML unit, not being a real browser, has issues with very large frameworks. I have personal experience with YUI3, the Yahoo UI framework. HTML unit cannot handle it. It's just too complex. It's too big for HTML unit to deal with. Ultimately, the difference is there. well, PhantomJS is a real driver, is a real browser. HTML unit is a mocked browser. So not being, it's actually not the same. You can be confident if you write decent JavaScript that works in PhantomJS, it will work in the other browsers. In particular, it will work in the WebKit-based browsers. While with HTML unit, you don't have that guarantee 100%.
Okay, so the benefits we get is that we can run through JavaScript engine, right? So that's the first piece. And the second piece is that we have some rendering going on in the background, just not through the real window.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Sure.
We are holding in memory the image of the rendering, so that if you ask for a screenshot, we can quickly say, okay, this is the file, and you get the file with the image.
Sorry, just like as a hands of not having the window, how is it complex to debug tests? How
If you are debugging PhantomJS itself, so just to clarify, GhostDriver is a script running inside PhantomJS, and it provides a WebDriver interface. If you want to debug that code, you have two options. Either you use the debugger, we have a remote debugger support in PhantomJS. Personally, I am probably a lazy bastard, and I prefer to use just console.logs. I console.log everywhere, and I debug the flow of my code. So far, it has worked for me pretty well. It's not always easy, so I suggest, I can show you a little bit of command line. So, I don't know if it's readable. You can set these two parameters here. With those, you can open PhantomJS, just start your script, and put PhantomJS in a mode that waits for a connection for a remote debugger. At that point, you can open Safari, Chrome. Because they have a debugger inside, they have web inspector, you can connect that browser to PhantomJS. So you are debugging, you will end up with debugging PhantomJS from within Chrome or from within Safari. It's a bit tricky to understand, but it works. It allows you to do debugging inside PhantomJS.